My wife's mom said, "We're doing Thanksgiving with just the well-behaved kids. Yours can skip this year." My daughter started crying. My wife texted, "Just stay home with the kids." I texted back, "Understood. I'll cancel my card for the event." They kept laughing, sending selfies at the table, totally unaware of what was about to happen next. So there I was, living my absolute best life on a Tuesday afternoon, doing what every red-blooded American man dreams of doing: folding laundry. Yeah, you heard that right. Laundry. The never-ending mountain of socks that somehow multiply in the dryer like rabbits on spring break. The shirts that need to be folded just right, or my wife will refold them with that special sigh that says, "You're incompetent." And don't even get me started on the fitted sheets. Those things are designed by the same people who created Rubik's Cubes and tax forms. Pure evil wrapped in cotton blend. I was standing there in our laundry room, which is really just a glorified closet with delusions of grandeur, trying to figure out if that one sock was navy blue or black, when my phone buzzed on top of the dryer. Now, normally I'd ignore it because nothing good ever comes from a text message on a Tuesday at 3:15 in the afternoon. It's either someone trying to extend my car's warranty, a reminder that I'm late on some bill I definitely already paid, or, and this is the real kicker, my mother-in-law. Spoiler alert, it was my mother-in-law. Carol. Just the name makes my left eye twitch a little. This woman could walk into a monastery full of Buddhist monks who've taken vows of eternal peace and patience, and within 15 minutes, she'd have them seriously reconsidering their life choices. I'm talking about the kind of person who corrects your grammar in birthday cards, who brings up your college GPA at family dinners even though you graduated 15 years ago, and who has opinions, strong, unsolicited opinions, about everything from how you mow your lawn to how you breathe oxygen. I picked up my phone, and there it was, glowing on my screen like some kind of digital hand grenade. "We're doing Thanksgiving with just the well-behaved kids. Yours can skip this year." No, hi, how are you? No, hope you're having a great day. Not even one of those weird emojis she usually sends that have nothing to do with the actual message, like a random flamingo, or that eggplant thing she definitely doesn't know the alternate meaning of. Just straight to the gut punch. Efficient, I'll give her that. I stood there, holding a pair of my daughter's pink leggings in one hand and my phone in the other, reading that message over and over like maybe if I blinked hard enough, the words would rearrange themselves into something that didn't make me want to throw my phone into the dryer and hit the permanent press cycle. Well-behaved kids. The well-behaved kids. As if my children were some kind of feral raccoons who'd been caught rifling through the neighbor's trash cans and couldn't be trusted around the fine china. My daughter Ava was sitting at the kitchen table about 10 feet away from me, completely oblivious to the fact that her grandmother had just emotionally drop-kicked her out of Thanksgiving. She was cutting out construction paper turkeys for her third-grade class project, her little tongue sticking out of the corner of her mouth the way it does when she's concentrating really hard. She'd been talking about Thanksgiving for weeks, asking me if Grandma would make her famous sweet potato casserole, wondering if this would be the year she finally got to sit at the big kids' table instead of the card table in the hallway that wobbles if you lean on it wrong. She looked up at me with those big hazel eyes, my eyes, thank God, because at least she got something good from my gene pool, and smiled. "Is that Grandma?" she asked, her voice full of that innocent hope that kids have before the world teaches them that people can be garbage in human form. Is she asking about Thanksgiving? Can I talk to her? I felt my stomach drop like I'd just gone over the big hill on a roller coaster. Except instead of screaming with joy, I wanted to scream in frustration. How do you tell your 8-year-old daughter that her grandmother just uninvited her to Thanksgiving? How do you explain that apparently she's been categorized as one of the not well-behaved kids, when the worst thing she's done in the last 6 months is forget to flush the toilet twice, and maybe, possibly accidentally on purpose fed the dog her Brussels sprouts last Sunday? I walked over to the table, my feet feeling like they were made of concrete, and handed her my phone. "Here, sweetheart. You can read it." I know. Father of the Year award, right here. But here's the thing. I was so stunned, so absolutely blindsided by the audacity of this woman, that my brain just short-circuited. It was like when your computer freezes and you just start clicking random things hoping something will work. Terrible decision-making skills, but hey, at least I'm consistent. Ava took the phone, and I watched her face as she read the message. It was like watching a time-lapse of a flower wilting. Her smile faded first, Then her eyes got all shiny, and this is what absolutely destroyed me. Her bottom lip started to quiver, but she didn't make a sound. She just sat there, holding my phone with both hands, tears rolling down her cheeks in complete silence, like she was trying not to bother anyone with her feelings. Like her sadness was an inconvenience she needed to keep to herself. That's when something inside me just snapped. Not in a throw furniture, punch walls kind of way, but in a quiet, cold, calculated way that's honestly way scarier. It was like a switch flipped in my brain, and suddenly I could see the last 10 years of my marriage with crystal clarity. All the times Carol had made little comments about my job not being prestigious enough. All the family gatherings where my kids were somehow always compared unfavorably to my brother-in-law's perfect children. All the moments where my wife, Lauren, just stood there and let it happen, nodding along like a bobblehead doll on a dashboard. I took my phone back from Ava and pulled her into a hug. She buried her face in my shirt, the one I'd just folded, ironically enough, and I could feel her little body shaking with those silent sobs that break your heart into a million tiny pieces. "It's okay, baby," I whispered into her hair, even though it absolutely was not okay, and we both knew it. "We'll have our own Thanksgiving. Just you, me, and your brother. We'll make it special." She nodded against my chest, but didn't say anything. What could she say? Her grandmother had just told her she wasn't good enough to eat turkey with the family. After I got Ava settled in front of the TV with some cartoon about talking animals saving the rainforest or whatever, I went back to the laundry room and did what any rational adult would do. I texted my wife. Lauren was at work, probably in some meeting about quarterly projections or synergizing paradigms or whatever corporate buzzword bingo they were playing that day. "Did you know about this?" I typed, attaching a screenshot of Carol's message. The three little dots appeared almost immediately. She was typing. Then they disappeared. Then they appeared again. This went on for about 2 minutes, which in text message time is basically an eternity. Finally, her response came through. "Just stay home with the kids. It's easier that way." Easier. Easier. That word sat on my screen like a turd on a wedding cake. Easier for whom, exactly? Easier for her, because she wouldn't have to deal with her mother's passive-aggressive comments about her choice in husband. Easier for Carol, because she could pretend she had the perfect family without the messy reality of my imperfect children. Easier for everyone except me and my kids, who were apparently the family embarrassment that needed to be hidden away like that weird uncle who got drunk at weddings and hit on the bridesmaids. I stood there in that tiny laundry room, surrounded by piles of clean clothes that nobody would appreciate, holding my phone and feeling something shift inside me. It was like I'd been carrying this massive weight on my shoulders for years, the weight of trying to be good enough for these people, of bending over backward to make them happy, of swallowing my pride and my feelings and my self-respect just to keep the peace. And suddenly, I was just done carrying it. My thumbs moved across the screen almost on autopilot. Understood. I'll cancel my card for the event. Now here's where it gets good. See, what Carol and Lauren and the rest of that dysfunctional circus didn't know was that I'd paid for the entire Thanksgiving dinner. Everything. The catering from that fancy place downtown that charges $40 for a pound of turkey. The decorations, those rustic farmhouse centerpieces that Carol had pinned on Pinterest and sent me 17 times to make sure I got exactly the right ones. The wine, the specialty cheese board, the organic cranberry sauce made by monks in Vermont or wherever. I dropped over $2,000 on this Thanksgiving extravaganza because Lauren had insisted that we need to contribute more and your family always brings store-bought stuff. So yeah, I had the receipts. Literally. I opened my email and started composing cancellation messages. The catering company first. "Sorry, we've had a change of plans. Please cancel our order and process the refund." Then the wine merchant, the florist, the fancy bakery that was making a pumpkin pie that cost more than my car payment. Click, click, click. Cancel, cancel, cancel. Each confirmation email that popped up felt like a little victory, like I was crossing items off a checklist titled, "How to Ruin Carol's Day." The best part? It was all in my name. My credit card, my email, my orders. They had no idea what was coming. I finished folding the laundry, because even in the middle of a family crisis, those socks weren't going to match themselves, and went to check on Ava. She'd fallen asleep on the couch, her construction paper turkeys scattered around her like autumn confetti. I grabbed a blanket and tucked it around her shoulders, then sat down in my recliner and pulled out my phone. I had one new message from Carol. Looking forward to Thursday. Can't wait for the feast. I smiled. Actually smiled. Because, oh Carol, you have no idea what kind of feast you're about to get. The next morning, I woke up with the kind of clarity that usually only comes after 3 cups of coffee or a near-death experience. Except I hadn't had either yet. It was 6 in the morning. My alarm was blaring some obnoxious pop song that I'd set 6 months ago and kept forgetting to change, and I was lying there in bed staring at the ceiling with a smile on my face. Not a happy smile, mind you. More like the smile a supervillain has right before they reveal their master plan to the hero tied to the train tracks. It was the smile of a man who'd finally figured out that sometimes the best revenge is just letting people experience the natural consequences of their own terrible behavior. Lauren was already gone. She'd left for some early morning conference call with the Singapore office, or maybe it was Stockholm. I honestly stopped keeping track of her work schedule around the same time she stopped asking about mine, and the kids were still asleep. The house was quiet in that weird way it only gets at dawn, where you can hear the refrigerator humming and the furnace clicking on, and every little sound seems amplified. I grabbed my phone off the nightstand and started going through my confirmation emails from the night before. Catering, canceled. Refund processing in 3 to 5 business days. The floral arrangements, canceled. The wine order from that pretentious shop where the guy behind the counter wears a bow tie and pronounces Pinot Grigio like he's gargling marbles, canceled. The fancy tablecloths I'd rented because apparently Carol's regular tablecloths weren't festive enough, canceled. The custom place cards with everyone's names written in calligraphy, canceled. Even the ice sculpture. Yeah, there was going to be an ice sculpture because Carol had seen one at her friend Deborah's Thanksgiving last year and absolutely had to have one, canceled. I sat there scrolling through these emails like a kid on Christmas morning, except instead of presents under a tree, I was getting digital confirmations that Carol's perfect Thanksgiving was about to become a Pinterest fail of epic proportions. And the best part? It was Thanksgiving morning. Too late to order anything else. Too late to hit up the grocery store for anything decent because everyone and their mother would be there fighting over the last frozen turkey like it was Black Friday at Walmart. They were going to show up to that big, beautiful house with its professionally decorated dining room and its perfectly set table, and there was going to be absolutely nothing to eat. I got out of bed feeling lighter than I had in months, maybe years. I threw on my oldest, most comfortable jeans, the ones with the hole in the knee that Lauren always said made me look like I was trying too hard to be young, and my favorite hoodie from college that had a stain on it from a barbecue in 2009 that I'd never been able to get out. Then I went downstairs and started making breakfast. Now, I'm not exactly a gourmet chef. My cooking skills pretty much max out at spaghetti, grilled cheese, and anything that comes with instructions that start with preheat oven too. But that morning, I decided I was going to make pancakes. Not just any pancakes, turkey-shaped pancakes. Because if my daughter couldn't have Thanksgiving with her grandmother, then by God, she was going to have Thanksgiving with me, and it was going to be fun even if I had to fake it till I made it. I found a recipe on my phone, Easy Pancakes for Beginners, which felt slightly insulting but also accurate, and got to work. Flour everywhere. Eggshells in the batter that I had to fish out with a spoon. Milk splashed on the counter. The kitchen looked like a bomb had gone off at IHOP, but I didn't care. I poured the batter into the pan in what I hoped were turkey shapes, though honestly, they looked more like amoebas having an identity crisis. Ava came downstairs around 8, still in her pajamas with her hair sticking up in 17 different directions, rubbing her eyes and yawning. She stopped at the bottom of the stairs and stared at me, at the disaster zone that used to be our kitchen, at the pancake currently smoking in the pan because I'd gotten distracted checking my email again. "Dad," she said slowly, "what are you doing?" "Making Thanksgiving breakfast," I announced proudly, flipping the pancake. It landed half on the spatula and half on the stovetop. "We're having turkey pancakes." She walked over and peered at the pan. "That looks like a potato that got run over by a car. It's abstract art. Very avant-garde. You wouldn't understand." I slid it onto a plate and added 2 chocolate chips for eyes and a piece of bacon for the beak. "See? Turkey." Ava giggled. Actually giggled. And it was like the sun coming out after a week of rain. "That's the ugliest turkey I've ever seen." Well, your face is the ugliest turkey I've ever seen. I shot back, which made her laugh harder, and suddenly we were okay. Not perfect, not healed, but okay. We sat at the kitchen table eating misshapen pancakes drowned in enough syrup to put a diabetic into a coma, and for the first time since yesterday's text message from hell, Ava looked happy. My son, Jake, wandered down around 9. He's 12 and in that phase where everything is either cringe or mid, and he communicates primarily in grunts and eye rolls. He took one look at the pancakes and said, "Bro, what even is that?" "Thanksgiving," I told him. He shrugged, grabbed 4 pancakes, and took them back upstairs to his room, where he was probably going to play video games until his eyes bled. Typical 12-year-old behavior. At least he was consistent. Around noon, after we'd cleaned up the kitchen, after I'd cleaned up the kitchen while Ava helped by eating chocolate chips directly from the bag, I made us turkey sandwiches from the deli meat in the fridge. We sat on the couch in our pajamas watching the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade on TV, which Jake declared was so cringe, before sitting down and watching it with us anyway. That's when my phone started buzzing. Not just a text here and there, but constant buzzing like an angry wasp trapped in a jar. I picked it up and opened the family group chat, the one Lauren had created called Mitchell Family Love, which was ironic on so many levels I couldn't even begin to unpack it. The messages were rolling in like a tsunami. My brother-in-law Todd had posted a selfie from Carol's dining room. He was holding a glass of wine, the wine I was supposed to have provided, with this smug grin on his face. The caption read, "Family time with the good ones. Hashtag blessed, hashtag Thanksgiving, hashtag family." I felt my jaw clench. The good ones. As if my kids were defective products that got returned to the factory. Then Carol posted a picture of her dining room table. It was gorgeous, I'll give her that. The tablecloth was perfect, the centerpieces were arranged just so, the place cards were all lined up like little soldiers. Everything looked like it had been ripped straight from a home decorating magazine. She'd captioned it, "Just waiting on the feast, smiling face with heart eyes, poultry leg, hashtag family that behaves, hashtag grateful, hashtag Thanksgiving traditions." Family that behaves. She actually wrote family that behaves, where my wife and kids could see it, where Ava could see it. I looked over at my daughter. She was watching the parade, munching on her sandwich, completely oblivious to the passive-aggressive warfare happening in the digital realm. Thank God for small mercies. The messages kept coming. Lauren posted a picture of herself with her sister, both of them holding champagne flutes and making duck faces at the camera. Sisters before misters. Clinking glasses to hearts, because nothing says, "I value my marriage," like implying your husband is less important than your Instagram aesthetic. Then, around 2:30, the tone of the messages started to shift. My brother-in-law's wife, Shannon, who I actually liked because she was the only one in that family who'd ever asked me how I was doing and actually waited for an answer, posted, "Hey, was the food supposed to come later? Getting hungry over here, LOL." 10 minutes later, Todd, "Yo, what's the ETA on the catering?" The game starts at 4. Then Carol, and I could practically feel the panic radiating through the screen. "Where's the food?" The caterer was supposed to be here at 1. Someone called him. I turned my phone face down on the couch cushion and smiled. Not a big smile, just a little one. The kind of smile you get when you're watching a chess match and you realize 3 moves ahead that your opponent is screwed and they just don't know it yet. "Dad," Ava looked at me. "Why are you smiling like that?" "No reason, sweetie. Just thinking about how much I love turkey sandwiches." I took a big bite of my sandwich for emphasis. It was dry and the bread was a little stale, but in that moment, it tasted like absolute victory. My phone was vibrating so hard it was practically dancing across the couch. I could see the screen lighting up with notification after notification. All caps messages. Strings of question marks. Probably some exclamation points thrown in for dramatic effect. But I didn't pick it up. I just sat there with my kids, in my stained hoodie and my ripped jeans, eating mediocre sandwiches and watching giant balloon characters float down the streets of New York City. Around 4 o'clock, I finally picked up my phone. 63 messages in the family group chat. 17 missed calls. 6 voicemails that I definitely wasn't going to listen to. The most recent message was from Carol. "Did you cancel everything?" I typed back one word. "Yep." Then I opened Facebook, took a picture of Ava and me on the couch in our pajamas with our paper plates of sandwich crusts, and posted it with the caption, thankful for peace, quiet, and quality time. Happy Thanksgiving from our drama-free zone. Turkey. I didn't tag anyone. Didn't have to. I knew they'd see it. I knew Carol would see it and understand exactly what I was saying. I knew Lauren would see it and realize I wasn't going to be the doormat anymore. I knew everyone in that whole dysfunctional circus would see it and know that this year, the turkey wasn't the only thing that got roasted. Ava snuggled up next to me. This is the best Thanksgiving ever, Dad. And you know what? Looking at my phone blowing up with their panic and rage while I sat there in perfect peace with my kid, she was absolutely right. The rest of Thanksgiving evening passed in this weird, blissful bubble of calm that I hadn't experienced in years. After we finished our sandwiches, which, let's be honest, were nothing to write home about, but at least nobody was judging how I'd cut them or asking why I hadn't used organic, free-range, gluten-free artisan bread, we decided to do something completely spontaneous. We put on real clothes, piled into my car, and drove to the movies. Because apparently, there are other families out there who also opt out of the whole Norman Rockwell painting experience, and the theater was actually pretty packed. We saw some animated movie about a penguin who wanted to be a Broadway star or something. I honestly spent half the movie watching Ava's face light up during the musical numbers, and the other half watching my phone vibrate silently in my pocket like a tiny earthquake that only I could feel. Every buzz was another message, another missed call, another desperate attempt by my in-laws to figure out what the hell had happened to their perfect Thanksgiving feast. It was like watching a slow-motion car crash, except I was the one who'd cut the brake lines, and I felt absolutely zero guilt about it. By the time we got home around 8 o'clock, my phone had basically given up on life. The battery was at 3% from all the notifications, and I'm pretty sure it was overheating from the sheer volume of rage being directed at it through the cellular network. I plugged it in and made the kids hot chocolate, the fancy kind with the mini marshmallows, because we were living large now, and got them ready for bed. Jake, in his typical preteen wisdom, looked at me while brushing his teeth and said, "Mom's gonna be pissed, isn't she?" "Probably," I admitted, because there was no point in lying to him. The kid was 12, not stupid. "Good," he said, and spit into the sink. Grandma's mean to Ava. Out of the mouths of babes, right? Or in this case, out of the mouths of surly preteens who spent too much time on TikTok. But he wasn't wrong. After I tucked Ava in, she was out like a light before I even finished reading her bedtime story about some princess who saved herself and didn't need a prince, which felt weirdly appropriate. I finally sat down on my bed and looked at my phone. The screen was absolutely destroyed with notifications. The family group chat had exploded into what could only be described as digital warfare. I scrolled through the messages, and honestly, it was better than any comedy special I'd ever watched. 3:15 p.m., Shannon. "Okay, seriously, is anyone else getting worried about the food situation?" 3:20 p.m., Todd. "I called the caterer, and they said the order was canceled." "What the hell?" 3:22 p.m., Carol. "What do you mean, canceled?" 3:30 p.m., Frank, my father-in-law, who usually communicated exclusively in grunts and football commentary. "Who canceled it?" 3:35 p.m., Lauren. "Let me call and figure this out." 3:40 p.m., Carol. "The florist says their order was canceled too." "And the wine. Everything is canceled." 3:45 p.m., Todd. "Bro, did you do this?" 4 p.m., Carol. "I spent 3 weeks planning this dinner." 4:05 p.m., Shannon. "Okay, I'm just gonna say it. Maybe we should order pizza?" 4:07 p.m., Carol. "We are not having pizza on Thanksgiving, Shannon. This is a family tradition." 4:15 p.m., Todd. He posted on Facebook, "Look at this crap." And then, radio silence for about 20 minutes. I could only imagine what was happening in that dining room. Carol probably pacing back and forth in her holiday sweater with the bedazzled turkey on it, working herself into a frenzy. Frank standing there looking confused because he'd probably just wanted to watch football and eat turkey without all the drama. Todd and Shannon exchanging those married couple looks that say, "We're definitely fighting about this in the car on the way home." And Lauren, my dear wife, probably sitting there trying to figure out how to spin this situation so she didn't look bad. 4:38 p.m., Lauren. "Can you please call me?" 4:40 p.m., Lauren. "We need to talk about this." 4:45 p.m., Lauren. "You're being incredibly immature right now." 5 p.m., Carol. "After everything we've done for you." This is how you repay us. 5:15 p.m., Todd. We ended up ordering Chinese food. On Thanksgiving. Hope you're happy. I set my phone down and laughed. Actually laughed out loud, alone in my bedroom, like some kind of maniac. Chinese food on Thanksgiving. Carol must have been absolutely losing her mind. This was a woman who color-coordinated her holiday decorations by Pantone number, who ironed her napkins into swan shapes, who once made her husband drive to 3 different stores to find the right shade of cinnamon sticks for a centerpiece that nobody even looked at. And now she was eating lo mein out of a takeout container on the most important food holiday of the year. The messages kept rolling in throughout the evening, getting progressively more unhinged. Carol sent a 7-paragraph essay about family obligations and respect. Todd sent a series of increasingly aggressive messages that basically boiled down to "you're a jerk and everyone hates you." Lauren tried the guilt trip angle, talking about how embarrassed she was and how I'd made her look bad in front of her family. But here's the thing, I didn't respond to any of them. Not a single message. I just left them all on read, watching those little blue check marks appear under each one, letting them know that I'd seen their words and simply chosen not to engage. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is absolutely nothing at all. Around 10 p.m., after the kids were definitely asleep and the house had settled into that late-night quiet, I did something I hadn't done in months. I opened a beer. Not the fancy craft IPA that Lauren always bought because it was sophisticated, but a regular, basic, ice-cold beer from a 12-pack that was probably on sale, and I sat on my back porch in the November cold and just existed. No family drama, no passive-aggressive comments, no walking on eggshells wondering what mood everyone would be in. Just me, my beer, and the sound of my neighbor's dog barking at absolutely nothing, because that's what dogs do. My phone buzzed one more time. I almost ignored it, but something made me look. It was a text from my buddy Marcus, who I'd known since high school. "Dude, I saw your Facebook post. You good?" I typed back. "Better than I've been in a long time, actually." 3 dots appeared, then, "That bad, huh?" They uninvited my kids to Thanksgiving. Called them not well-behaved enough. Bro, what the actual hell? Right? So I canceled all the food I'd paid for. They ended up eating Chinese takeout. There was a longer pause this time. And then, "You're my hero." Seriously, that's the most legendary petty move I've ever heard of. Thanks, man. Felt pretty good, not gonna lie. Emily and I are doing leftover turkey sandwiches tomorrow if you and the kids want to come by. Real Thanksgiving, none of that toxic family nonsense. I smiled at my phone. Yeah, we'd like that. That night, I slept better than I had in years. No tossing and turning, no anxiety dreams about forgetting someone's birthday or saying the wrong thing at a family dinner. Just solid, peaceful sleep. And when I woke up the next morning, Black Friday, I had 47 new messages waiting for me. The panic had evolved. It wasn't about the food anymore. Now they wanted to know if I was serious about this, if I was really going to throw away family over one little incident, if I understood how hurtful and vindictive my actions were. Carol sent a message saying she forgave me for my outburst and that we should move past this unpleasantness. Lauren sent a novel-length text about how her mother was just being protective and how I'd overreacted. I read every single message while drinking my coffee, black, the way I actually liked it, not with oat milk and stevia like Lauren always insisted was healthier. And then I crafted my response. Short, simple, and absolutely final. Ava cried when she read that text. She asked me what she did wrong to make Grandma not want her at Thanksgiving. She's 8 years old, and she thought she'd done something to deserve being excluded from family. So no, I'm not moving past this. And no, I'm not overreacting. I'm actually reacting exactly the right amount for the first time in 10 years. I hit send and turned off my phone. Not put it on silent, not just ignored it, actually powered it down completely. Then I made pancakes again. Regular round ones this time, because I'd learned my lesson about attempting turkey shapes. And when the kids came downstairs, I told them we were going to spend the day doing whatever they wanted. Ava wanted to go to the park and feed the ducks. Jake wanted to go to the comic book store and blow his allowance on the latest issue of whatever superhero was popular that week. So that's exactly what we did. We spent Black Friday, the biggest shopping day of the year, doing absolutely nothing productive or consumer-driven. We fed ducks, bought comic books, got ice cream even though it was 40 degrees outside, and generally had the kind of day that makes you remember why you had kids in the first place. When I finally turned my phone back on that evening, there were 91 new messages. I didn't read a single one. I just opened Facebook, posted another picture, this time of Ava at the park, laughing and throwing breadcrumbs to a particularly aggressive mallard, and captioned it, "Day 2 of our drama-free holiday weekend. Highly recommend." The likes started rolling in immediately. Friends I hadn't heard from in years commenting things like, "You're doing great," and "Family isn't always blood." Even my mom, who lived 3 states away and had her own complicated relationship with Lauren's family, commented with 3 heart emojis and "So proud of you, son." That's when I realized something important. I'd spent 10 years trying to be good enough for people who were never going to think I was good enough. I'd bent over backward, swallowed my pride, funded their events, and bit my tongue through countless insults and jabs. All for what? For the privilege of being tolerated? For the honor of having my kids treated like second-class citizens in their own family? Nah, I was done with that. The door wasn't just closed anymore. I was starting to brick it up. The weekend passed in what I can only describe as the calm before the storm. Except I was the one who'd summoned the storm, and I was just sitting back watching it roll in with a bag of popcorn and 0 regrets. Saturday and Sunday were gloriously quiet. I kept my phone on, but I'd muted the family group chat and started letting Lauren's calls go to voicemail. She'd left approximately 14 messages, each one escalating in tone from "we need to talk" to "you're being ridiculous" to "I can't believe you're doing this to my family," like I was the villain in this story. The audacity was almost impressive. Sunday night, Lauren came home. I heard her car pull into the driveway around 9 p.m., which was later than usual. She'd stayed at her parents' house for the entire weekend, and I hadn't exactly begged her to come back. The kids were already in bed, and I was on the couch watching some documentary about how penguins walk like 70 miles to mate or something. Nature is wild, man. She came through the door and didn't even look at me, just walked straight upstairs, and I heard the bedroom door close. Not slam, which would have been honest emotion, but close with that controlled firmness that somehow feels worse. It's the sound of someone who's furious but too proper to show it. Very Carol of her, actually. The apple doesn't fall far from the passive-aggressive tree. I slept on the couch that night. Not because she kicked me out, she didn't say a word to me, but because I honestly preferred it. The couch didn't judge me, didn't give me the silent treatment, and didn't expect me to apologize for having a backbone. Monday morning rolled around like Mondays do, dragging its feet and bringing that special kind of dread that makes you question all your life choices. I got the kids ready for school, made them breakfast, regular cereal this time, nothing fancy, because we were back to reality, and drove them to school. Ava hugged me extra tight before getting out of the car, and Jake actually said, "Thanks, Dad," instead of his usual grunt, so I guess the weekend had been good for them too. I was sitting in the parking lot of Jake's middle school, watching him shuffle inside with his backpack hanging off one shoulder in that way that 12-year-olds think looks cool, when my phone rang. Not a text, not a voicemail notification, an actual phone call. The screen said, "Todd Mobile," and I seriously considered just letting it ring. But curiosity got the better of me. I wanted to hear what excuse they'd come up with now. "Yeah," I answered, not even bothering with a hello. "Hey man." Todd's voice had that weird, fake casual tone that people use when they want something, but they're trying to pretend they don't. "Got a minute?" "I've got several." "What's up?" "Look, about Thanksgiving," he started, and I could already tell this wasn't going to be an apology. Mom's pretty upset, and Lauren's really stressed out, and I think we all just need to sit down and talk this through like adults. "Like adults," I repeated. "Sure, let's talk like adults. Adults like your mom, who told my 8-year-old daughter that she's not well-behaved enough to come to Thanksgiving." Silence on the other end. Then, "Okay, that came out wrong. Mom didn't mean it like that." "Really? How did she mean it, Todd? Use your adult words." I'm all ears. More silence. I could practically hear him scrambling for an explanation that didn't make his mother sound like the villain, which was impossible because she was, in fact, the villain. "Look, she was just trying to, you know how she is. She gets particular about the holidays." "Particular? That's what we're calling it." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "She excluded my kids from a family event and made my daughter cry. That's not being particular. That's being cruel. Come on, man, don't be so dramatic. Kids cry about everything." She probably forgot about it 5 minutes later. And there it was. The dismissiveness, the minimizing, the classic move of people who've never been on the receiving end of the cruelty, so they can't possibly understand why anyone would be upset about it. I felt my grip tighten on the steering wheel. She didn't forget about it, I said quietly. She asked me what she did wrong. She thought it was her fault. So no, Todd, I'm not being dramatic. I'm being a father. Okay, I hear you. But here's the thing. And this is where his voice changed, got a little more urgent, a little less fake casual. We actually need to talk to you about something else. Something important. More important than emotionally scarring my kid. It's about mom and dad's house. I paused. What about it? They're having some issues with the bank. Some mortgage stuff. It's complicated, but basically, they might lose the house if they don't come up with a payment pretty soon. There it was. The real reason for the call. Not an apology, not a genuine attempt to make things right. They needed money. Of course they did. This family only called me when they needed something, and apparently, this time it was cold hard cash to save Carol's precious house. And this involves me how? I asked, even though I knew exactly where this was going. Well, you're good with finances and stuff. We thought maybe you could help them figure something out. Or, help with the payment. Just this once. Just this once. I'd heard that phrase before. Like the time I'd paid for Todd's car insurance just this once, when he'd had 3 accidents in 6 months. Or the time I'd covered Carol and Frank's vacation to Florida just this once because they'd had a hard year. Or the time I bought Lauren's sister a new laptop just this once because hers had broken and she was a struggling artist who needed it for her Etsy shop that sold overpriced candles shaped like genitals. I wish I was joking about that last one. How much are we talking? I asked. About 15 grand. I laughed. Actually laughed out loud, sitting in my car in the middle school parking lot like a crazy person. $15,000. They excluded my kids from Thanksgiving, made my daughter cry, told me to just stay home, like we were inconveniences, and now they wanted me to drop 15 grand to save their house. That's a no, Todd. Come on, man. Be reasonable. It's family. You're right, it is family. My family. Ava and Jake. And your mother made it very clear that they're not part of your family. So why should I care what happens to hers? That's not. You're twisting this. I'm not twisting anything. I'm actually seeing things clearly for the first time in 10 years. Tell Carol and Frank to figure it out themselves. They're adults, right? They should be able to handle their own problems. They co-signed for my car loan, okay? That's why the bank is coming after them. It's partially my fault, and I'm trying to fix it, but I don't have that kind of money right now. Of course. Of course Todd had screwed up his finances and dragged his parents down with him. This was the same guy who'd bought a $60,000 SUV on a $50,000 salary and then acted surprised when he couldn't make the payments. The same guy who'd taken out loans for a boat he'd used exactly twice before it sat in his driveway collecting leaves and becoming a neighborhood eyesore. Sounds like a family problem, I said. You, Carol, and Frank should have a nice long conversation about financial responsibility. Maybe over Chinese takeout. You're really going to do this? You're going to let them lose their house over a stupid argument about Thanksgiving? I'm not doing anything, Todd. You did this. When you bought a car you couldn't afford. Carol did this when she co-signed for something she couldn't cover. And you all did this when you decided my kids weren't good enough to eat turkey with you. Actions have consequences. Welcome to adulthood. Lauren's going to be pissed. Lauren's already pissed. Might as well give her a good reason. I hung up before he could respond, my heart pounding in my chest like I'd just run a marathon. My phone immediately started ringing again. Carol this time. Then Frank. Then a number I didn't recognize that was probably Shannon calling from a different phone. I declined all of them and drove home in silence, my hands shaking slightly on the wheel. When I got home, I did something I probably should have done years ago. I made myself a cup of coffee, sat down at the kitchen table, and really looked at my bank statements. Not just the checking account, but everything. Savings, investment accounts, the kids' college funds. Over the past 10 years, I'd given Carol and Frank's family over $80,000. $80,000. Car payments, house repairs, medical bills that their insurance should have covered but somehow didn't, Lauren's sister's wedding that turned into a 50-person destination event in Cancun, Todd's business ventures that all failed spectacularly, credit card debts, utility bills, emergency flights, legal fees when Todd got a DUI. The list went on and on. $80,000 that I'd worked my ass off for. That could have gone toward my kids' future, or toward a nice family vacation, or toward literally anything other than propping up a family that treated us like second-class citizens. I was staring at these numbers, feeling a mixture of rage and disbelief, and something that felt almost like grief for the person I used to be. The person who thought that if he just gave enough, did enough, sacrificed enough, they'd finally accept him. When my phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Carol. We always knew you'd show your true colors eventually. Selfish to the core. We took you in when Lauren married down, and this is how you repay us. Married down. She actually wrote married down in a text message that she presumably thought would convince me to give her $15,000. The woman's lack of self-awareness was truly impressive. I took a screenshot of the message, not because I was going to post it or share it, but because I wanted to remember this moment. The moment when I realized that no amount of money, no amount of bending over backward, no amount of swallowing my pride was ever going to be enough for these people. They didn't want a son-in-law or a brother-in-law or a father for their grandchildren. They wanted an ATM with feelings they could manipulate. I typed back, the answer is no. Figure it out yourselves. Then I did something that felt both terrifying and liberating. I opened our joint bank account with Lauren and transferred half the money into a separate account in just my name. Not to be vindictive, not to punish her, but because I had a feeling things were about to get a lot worse before they got better, and I needed to protect myself and my kids. My phone rang again. Lauren this time. I answered. What the hell is wrong with you? She said instead of hello. No. Hi, honey. No. How are you? Just straight to the accusation. My parents might lose their house, and you won't help? Your parents, I said calmly, excluded our children from Thanksgiving. They called Ava not well-behaved. They made our daughter cry, and now they want me to give them $15,000. Do you see the problem here? That's not. You're being. This is about the house, not about Thanksgiving. Everything's about Thanksgiving, Lauren. It's about how your family treats our kids, how they've always treated us. And I'm done pretending it's okay. So you're just going to let them become homeless? Is that who you are now? They're not going to be homeless. They'll figure something out. Sell the boat Todd never uses. Downsize. Get a loan. I don't know, and honestly, I don't care anymore. The line went silent for a long moment. Then, in a voice I'd never heard from her before, cold and flat, I don't think I know you anymore. Good, I said. Maybe you can get to know the real me instead of the doormat you married. I hung up. For 3 days, I let them sweat. 3 glorious days of silence where I didn't answer calls, didn't respond to texts, didn't engage with the increasingly desperate messages flooding my phone like some kind of digital tsunami of panic and entitlement. It was peaceful, honestly. I went to work, came home, helped the kids with their homework, made dinner, watched TV, normal human stuff that didn't involve being someone's personal bailout fund or emotional punching bag. Wednesday afternoon, I was sitting in my office pretending to care about a spreadsheet when my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. Usually, I let it go to voicemail because it was probably some scammer trying to tell me my car's extended warranty was expiring or that the IRS was coming to arrest me for tax fraud, but something made me answer it. Hello. Hi, is this Mr. Mitchell? A woman's voice, professional, with that particular tone that customer service people use when they're about to deliver bad news they've delivered 1,000 times before. Speaking. This is Jennifer from First National Bank. I'm calling regarding the mortgage account for Frank and Carol Mitchell. Our records show you as an authorized contact on the account. I closed my eyes. Of course I was an authorized contact. Of course Carol had put me on their mortgage paperwork years ago when they'd refinanced, probably so I could help with questions, which really meant take responsibility for their financial disasters. I'm listening, I said. The account is currently 60 days past due, and we've begun foreclosure proceedings. The total amount needed to bring the account current is $18,427. This needs to be paid by Friday to stop the foreclosure process. $18,000. It had gone up from Todd's estimate of $15,000. Probably late fees and penalties stacking up like a Jenga tower of bad decisions. Okay, I said. Thank you for letting me know. Will you be making a payment today? No, I said simply. That won't be happening. But thanks for the call. I hung up before she could launch into whatever script she had about payment plans and financial hardship options. It wasn't my problem. Except, As I sat there staring at my computer screen, not seeing any of the numbers on it, I realized it kind of was my problem. Not because I owed Carol and Frank anything. I didn't, not after what they'd done, but because Ava was going to find out eventually that her grandparents lost their house, and she was going to ask me if I could have helped, and I was going to have to look into those big hazel eyes and explain adult concepts like boundaries and consequences and self-respect. I made it until Thursday evening before I cracked. Not because of the guilt trips. There'd been plenty of those, believe me. Carol had sent me a photo of her and Frank standing in front of their house with a caption that said 40 years of memories, gone because of one grudge. Lauren's sister had posted on Facebook about how some people value pride over family, which was rich coming from someone who'd borrowed $3,000 from me last year to go to Coachella and still hadn't paid it back. Even Lauren had tried the emotional manipulation angle, sending me pictures of her childhood bedroom and talking about how she'd grown up in that house. But none of that got to me. What got to me was Ava. She came into the living room Thursday night while I was watching some cooking show where people made elaborate desserts that looked like other things, and she climbed onto the couch next to me. She was quiet for a few minutes, just watching the TV, and then she said, "Dad, is Grandma okay?" My stomach dropped. "What do you mean, sweetheart? I heard you talking on the phone. About her house. Is she going to lose it?" Damn it. I thought I'd been quieter. "She's having some problems with the bank, yeah." "Because of money?" "Yeah, because of money." Ava was quiet again, picking at a loose thread on her pajama pants. Then, in this small voice, "Is it because we didn't go to Thanksgiving? Is she sad, and that's why she can't pay?" And there it was. The guilt that Carol and Lauren and the whole family had been trying to manufacture in me for days. They'd managed to plant it directly into my 8-year-old daughter without even trying. She thought her grandmother's financial problems were somehow connected to the Thanksgiving disaster, like cosmic punishment for our absence. "No, baby. No, no, no." I pulled her into a hug. "Grandma's money problems have nothing to do with you or Thanksgiving. Sometimes adults make bad choices with money, and they have to deal with the consequences. That's not your fault. Not even a little bit. But you could help her, right? You're good with money." I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. Here was the moment. The teaching moment. The moment where I could either show my daughter that having boundaries was important and that you don't have to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm, or I could show her that family can treat you like garbage and you'll still come running with your wallet open when they need you. "I could help," I said slowly. "But that doesn't mean I should. Do you understand the difference?" She thought about it, her forehead scrunching up the way it did when she was working through a tough math problem. Like how I could eat candy for breakfast, but I shouldn't? Exactly like that. I kissed the top of her head. Sometimes the right thing and the easy thing aren't the same thing. She nodded against my chest, and we sat there watching someone create a cake that looked like a hamburger, and I made a decision. Not for Carol, not for Frank, not even for Lauren. For Ava. Because someday she'd be older and she'd hear this story, and I wanted her to know that even when people hurt us, we could still choose to be the bigger person, but on our terms, not theirs. Friday morning, I drove to the bank. Not Carol's bank, my bank. I withdrew $18,000 for $127 from my savings account, and then drove across town to First National. The teller was a kid who looked like he was maybe 23, with gel in his hair and a tie that didn't quite match his shirt. "I need to make a payment on a mortgage account," I said, sliding him the account number I'd written on a piece of paper. "Sure thing. Let me pull that up." He typed for a minute, then his eyebrows went up. "Oh, this account is in foreclosure." "Yep, that's why I'm here. To bring it current." He processed the payment, and I watched my money disappear into the digital void of Carol and Frank's irresponsibility. $18,000 for $127. Gone. Just like that. "All set," the kid said, handing me a receipt. "The account is now current. The foreclosure proceedings will be stopped within 24 hours. "Great. Thanks." I took the receipt and walked out, feeling both lighter and heavier at the same time. I didn't call Carol, didn't call Frank or Todd or Lauren. I just went home, scanned the receipt, and sent it to Carol's email with no message. Just the receipt. Proof that I'd saved her house, paid her bills, bailed out her irresponsible son's mistake one more time. My phone rang within 5 minutes. Carol. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again. Frank this time. Voicemail. Then Todd. Then Shannon. Then Lauren calling from her office phone like I wouldn't recognize the number. Finally, A text from Carol came through. Thank you so much. I knew you'd come through for family. We should all get together this weekend to celebrate. I stared at that message for a long time. No, I'm sorry for what I said about your kids. No, I was wrong to exclude Ava and Jake from Thanksgiving. No acknowledgement of any of it. Just straight to celebration and moving on like nothing had happened. Like I was supposed to just forget that she'd called my daughter not well behaved, that she'd made her cry, that she'd told me to just stay home with the kids because it was easier that way. I typed back, I didn't do this for you. I did it for Ava, so she wouldn't grow up thinking her grandmother was homeless because of her. Don't mistake this for forgiveness. The money went to the bank, not to you. We're not celebrating. We're not getting together. We're not suddenly fine. I saved your house. You still broke my daughter's heart. Those are two separate things. I hit send and then, because I was on a roll, I added, also, you're welcome. That phrase you're looking for is, thank you, and I'm sorry. Look it up. The response came almost immediately from Lauren. Why do you have to make everything so difficult? They said thank you. I laughed out loud in my empty kitchen. They said thank you for the money. Not sorry for hurting our kid. There's a difference. You're being petty. I'm being a father. If you can't see the difference, that's on you. I turned my phone off after that and went to pick up the kids from school. When Ava got in the car, she asked, did you help Grandma? Yeah, baby. I helped. Are you mad about it? I thought about that for a second, watching her in the rearview mirror, her backpack almost bigger than she was. No, I'm not mad. I'm glad I could help. But that doesn't mean everything's okay between us and Grandma. Sometimes you can do something nice for someone and still need space from them. Does that make sense? She nodded seriously. Like when I let Emma borrow my favorite pencil and she broke it. But I still helped her with math because Mrs. Peterson said we should be kind even when people aren't kind to us. Exactly like that? I said, even though the situations weren't remotely the same, and also, Emma sounded like kind of a jerk and maybe Ava needed better friends. But the principle was there. That weekend, my phone was full of messages from Carol about coming over for Sunday dinner, about putting this all behind us, about how family forgives. Lauren was pushing hard too, saying her parents wanted to properly thank me and that I was being stubborn and difficult. Sunday morning, I got a group text, because of course it was a group text, inviting us to a family reconciliation dinner at Carol's house. The message said, let's all come together and remember what's important. Family. Dinner at 5 p.m. Everyone welcome. Everyone welcome. The irony was almost beautiful. 3 weeks ago, my kids weren't welcome. Not well behaved enough for the family Thanksgiving. But now that I'd saved their house, suddenly we were welcome again? Suddenly we were family? I showed the message to Lauren when she came home from her Saturday yoga class. Are we going? She asked. Are you serious right now? They're trying to make things right. The least you could do is meet them halfway. Halfway. I set down the sandwich I was making. Lauren, I just paid 18 grand to save their house after they excluded our children from Thanksgiving and called our daughter not well behaved. I'd say I've already gone way past halfway. I've gone around the world and back to halfway. So what? You're just never going to see them again. That's your solution? My solution is that they apologize to Ava. Not to me, to her. They look her in the eye and tell her they're sorry for making her feel like she wasn't good enough. They acknowledge what they did was wrong. Then maybe, we can talk about Sunday dinners. Lauren stared at me. They're not going to do that. Then I guess we're not going to Sunday dinner. 2 weeks went by in this weird stalemate where Carol and Frank kept sending invitations to various family events like nothing had happened. Sunday dinners, a movie night, Frank's birthday barbecue, and I kept declining them like I was Marie Kondo and toxic people out of my life. Lauren was caught in the middle, which honestly was her own fault for refusing to pick a side, and she spent most evenings either at her parents' house or locked in our bedroom on the phone with her sister complaining about how impossible I was being. The house had this tension hanging over it like fog, thick and uncomfortable, but I'd made my peace with it. Some hills are worth dying on, and protecting my kids from people who made them feel worthless was definitely one of them. Then December rolled around, and with it came the Christmas propaganda campaign. Carol started posting on Facebook about her annual Christmas shopping tradition with the grandkids, complete with throwback photos from previous years showing Todd's kids, perfect, well-behaved Tyler and Madison, posing with shopping bags and hot chocolate from the fancy outdoor mall across town. The captions were nauseatingly sweet. making memories with my precious angels, and nothing better than spoiling my babies. Each post was like a little targeted missile designed to make me feel guilty, and I'll admit, they were working a little bit. Ava saw one of the posts, because of course she did. Kids have a sixth sense for finding exactly the content that will hurt them most. And she came to me with her tablet, showing me a picture of her cousins from last year standing in front of the big Christmas tree at the mall. "Dad, do you think Grandma will take me shopping this year?" My heart sank into my shoes and possibly through the floor into the basement. "I don't know, sweetie. She always takes Tyler and Madison. And last year she took Emma from her church. But she's never taken me." Her voice got smaller. "Is it because I'm not good enough at behaving?" I wanted to scream. I wanted to call Carol right then and tell her exactly what I thought about her and her selective grandmothering and her passive-aggressive Facebook posts. But instead, I knelt down so I was eye level with Ava and said, "You are perfectly behaved. You're kind and smart and funny, and any grandmother would be lucky to take you shopping. If Grandma doesn't see that, that's her problem, not yours." "But I want her to see it," Ava whispered, and that was the part that killed me. She still wanted Carol's approval, still wanted to be included, still hoped that maybe this time would be different. The next day, my phone rang. "Carol." I almost didn't answer, but something, maybe curiosity, maybe stupidity, made me pick up. "I've been thinking," she started, no hello, no preamble, just straight into it like we talked every day, "about the Christmas shopping tradition. With the grandchildren." I waited, not giving her anything. "And I think it would be nice to include Ava this year. To show there are no hard feelings about the Thanksgiving misunderstanding." Misunderstanding. She called the deliberate exclusion and emotional devastation of my child a misunderstanding, like she'd accidentally given us the wrong time for dinner or forgotten to mention it was potluck. "What brought this on?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral even though I wanted to reach through the phone and shake some self-awareness into her. "Well, Lauren mentioned that Ava saw the Facebook posts, and we don't want her to feel left out. Family is important, especially during the holidays. Family is important." This woman had a real talent for saying the exact words that meant nothing coming from her mouth. But I thought about Ava's face when she'd asked me if Grandma would take her shopping, that hopefulness mixed with resignation, and I made a decision I would regret for the rest of my natural life. "Okay," I said. "When? Saturday? I'll pick her up at 10. We'll make a whole day of it. Lunch, shopping, maybe some hot chocolate. It'll be special." "Special. Sure." I gave Carol our address, even though she'd been here 1,000 times, and we made arrangements like two people negotiating a hostage exchange instead of grandma-granddaughter bonding time. Saturday morning, Ava was up at 6:30, which for a kid who normally had to be dragged out of bed on weekends was basically a Christmas miracle in itself. She tried on 4 different outfits before settling on her favorite dress, the purple one with sparkles that she'd worn to her school's winter concert, and her boots that lit up when she walked. She did her own hair, pulling it back with a headband that had a bow on it, and she looked so proud of herself, so excited, so hopeful that this would be the day Grandma finally saw her as worthy. I took a picture of her standing by the front door, backlit by the morning sun coming through the window, smiling so big her eyes crinkled at the corners. I didn't post it anywhere. I just saved it because something in my gut told me I might need to remember this moment, the before. Carol pulled up at 10:03 in her white SUV that was so clean it looked like it had never actually been driven anywhere with real roads. She honked instead of coming to the door, which was typical Carol behavior. Why waste energy on pleasantries when you could just summon people like a feudal lord? Ava grabbed her little purse, the one she'd gotten for her birthday that she never got to use because we didn't go anywhere fancy, and ran out the door. I followed, watching as she climbed into the back seat and buckled herself in. Carol gave me a wave through the window, didn't roll it down to actually speak to me, and then they were gone. "She'll be fine," Lauren said from behind me. I hadn't even heard her come downstairs. "Mom's good with kids. She's good with Tyler and Madison," I corrected. "Jury's still out on how she is with ours." Lauren sighed, that special sigh she reserved for when she thought I was being dramatic. "Can you try to be positive?" For once, I didn't answer, just went inside and tried to distract myself with chores, but every task felt hollow. I cleaned the kitchen that was already clean, organized the garage that was already organized, checked my phone every 15 minutes like Ava was going to text me updates, even though she was 8 and barely knew how to work the tablet, let alone a phone. For hours later, 4 hours that felt like 40, Carol's SUV pulled back into the driveway. I was at the door before she'd even put it in park, watching as Ava climbed out of the back seat. She wasn't smiling, wasn't crying either, just this blank expression that was somehow worse than tears. Carol rolled down her window this time. Mall was too crowded, she said flatly, like she was commenting on the weather. Christmas shopping, you know how it is. Couldn't find parking. Then she drove off. Didn't wait for a response. Didn't ask if Ava wanted to say goodbye. Just left my daughter standing in the driveway holding a tiny shopping bag that looked suspiciously small for a 4-hour shopping trip. Hey, baby, I said, walking over to her. How was it? She shrugged, not meeting my eyes. Fine. Want to come inside and tell me about it? I'm tired. Can I just go to my room? Sure, sweetheart. Whatever you want. She trudged past me into the house, her light-up boots flashing with each step, not making a sound. That night, I heard crying coming from her room around 8 o'clock. Not loud crying, not the kind that demands attention and comfort, but quiet, muffled crying into a pillow. The kind that says I don't want to bother anyone with my pain. I opened her door slowly. She was curled up on her bed, still in the sparkly dress, clutching something in her hand. When she saw me, she tried to wipe her face, tried to put on a brave smile. What's wrong, Ava? Nothing. I'm fine. You don't sound fine. Can I see what you're holding? She opened her hand, and there it was, a tiny snowman keychain. One of those cheap ones you get at the dollar store, plastic and flimsy, the kind of thing they put in the bins by the register to catch impulse buys. That was it. For hours of shopping, and all my daughter had to show for it was a keychain that probably cost 99 cents. That's nice, I said, sitting on the edge of her bed, trying to keep my voice steady even though rage was building in my chest like a volcano. Is that all Grandma got you? Ava nodded, still not looking at me. She said she had to save money for the real grandkids' presents. That Tyler and Madison needed bigger gifts because they're in more activities and they're more expensive to shop for. Her voice broke. She said I should understand because I'm a good girl. Real grandkids. She'd actually said real grandkids, out loud, to my 8-year-old daughter's face. Not other grandkids or your cousins, but real grandkids, implying that Ava was what? Fake. Temporary. Not actually part of the family. Ava, look at me. I waited until she met my eyes. You are a real grandkid. You are her real granddaughter. And if she can't see how special and wonderful and absolutely perfect you are, that is 100% her problem and 0% yours. Do you understand? She nodded, but I could tell she didn't believe me. How could she? Her grandmother had just spent 4 hours showing her that she was less than, worth less than, not as important as her cousins. No amount of dad speeches could erase that. Did you guys actually go shopping? Like to stores? Yeah. We went to the toy store where she got Tyler a drone. And the sporting goods store where she got Madison new soccer stuff. And the jewelry store where she got Aunt Melissa a necklace. Ava's voice was so small. I just waited while she shopped. Sometimes she'd tell me to look at stuff, but not touch anything, because she didn't want me to break something expensive. My hands clenched into fists. Carol had taken my daughter on a shopping trip where the only purpose was to show her everything she was buying for other people while giving her a dollar store keychain and calling the other kids real grandkids. This wasn't thoughtlessness. This wasn't an accident. This was deliberate cruelty wrapped in a Christmas bow. I tucked Ava in, kissed her forehead, told her I loved her more than anything in the world, and then I went downstairs where Lauren was watching TV like nothing was wrong. How was the shopping trip? She asked absently, not looking away from whatever show she was watching. Your mother took our daughter on a 4-hour tour of everything she was buying other people and gave her a 99-cent keychain from the dollar store. That got her attention. She looked at me. What? She called Tyler and Madison the real grandkids. To Ava's face. Said she had to save money for them because they're more important. Lauren's face went pale. She wouldn't. Go ask your daughter. She's upstairs crying into her pillow, clutching a plastic snowman and wondering why she's not good enough to be considered real family. For the first time since this whole nightmare started, I saw something like doubt cross Lauren's face. Like maybe, just maybe, she was starting to realize that her mother wasn't just particular or traditional or whatever excuse she'd been using. She was mean, deliberately, calculatedly mean to a child. I'll talk to her, Lauren said quietly. Talk to which her? Your mother or your daughter? Both. I'll. I'll fix this. I looked at my wife, this woman I'd been married to for 13 years, and realized I didn't believe her. She'd had dozens of chances to fix this, to stand up for our kids, to tell her mother that her behavior was unacceptable. And she hadn't. She'd chosen her mother over our daughter every single time. Sure, I said, heading toward the stairs. You fix it. I'll be up here being an actual parent. That night, lying in bed, Lauren was downstairs again, probably on the phone with Carol coordinating their story. I made myself a promise. Next time Carol came asking for help, for money, for anything, I wouldn't cave. Not for Ava's sake, not for anyone's sake. Because saving people who are drowning is noble, but saving people who are deliberately pulling your kids underwater with them is just stupid. December rolled along like a freight train, picking up speed as it headed toward Christmas, and I spent most of it trying to repair the damage Carol had done to Ava's sense of self-worth. We did special daddy-daughter dates. Ice skating at the outdoor rink downtown where I fell on my ass approximately 17 times, and she laughed so hard hot chocolate came out of her nose. Movie marathons where we watched all her favorite animated films and ate popcorn for dinner like civilized people. Even a weekend trip to visit my mom upstate where Ava got spoiled rotten the way grandkids are supposed to be spoiled. My mom bought her actual presents, listened to her talk about school, asked about her friends, treated her like she mattered. You know, basic grandparent behavior that apparently was too much to ask from Carol. Lauren and I existed in this weird state of marital détente, where we were technically still living in the same house, but operating like roommates who didn't particularly like each other. She'd stopped pushing me to reconcile with her family after the shopping disaster. I think even she couldn't spin calling Ava not a real grandkid into something acceptable, but she also hadn't actually confronted her mother about it. She'd talked to her, according to Lauren, and Carol had said it was a misunderstanding and that Ava had taken it the wrong way. Because 8-year-olds are notorious for their complex misinterpretations of straightforward insults. 2 weeks before Christmas, on a Tuesday evening when I'd just gotten home from work and was contemplating whether I had the energy to cook dinner or if we were going full cereal for dinner mode, there was a knock at the door. Not the doorbell, a knock. Specific, deliberate, the kind of knock that says, "I'm here on serious business and I'm not leaving until we talk." I opened the door, and there stood Frank, my father-in-law, the man who communicated primarily through grunts, football commentary, and the occasional complaint about his lawnmower. He was standing on my porch in his work jacket. He was an electrician, one of those old-school guys who'd been doing it for 40 years and could probably wire a house in his sleep, with his hands shoved in his pockets and an expression on his face that I'd never seen before. It took me a second to identify it, and when I did, I almost laughed. He looked humble. Frank, the guy who once told me that real men don't drive sedans while standing next to my perfectly reasonable Honda Accord, looked like a man who'd had his pride kicked in the teeth and was trying to figure out how to ask for help without actually saying the words, "I need help." "Son," he said, which was already weird because Frank had never called me son. I was usually "Hey you" or "Lauren's husband," or occasionally just a chin nod that was supposed to encompass all forms of acknowledgement. "Frank," I replied, not moving from the doorway, not inviting him in. "What brings you by?" He shifted his weight from one foot to the other, looking past me into the house like he was hoping Lauren would materialize and save him from this conversation. "Got a minute? Need to talk to you about something." "I've got a few minutes." "What's up? Can I come in? It's cold out here." It was cold, probably 35 degrees with that wind that cuts right through your jacket and makes you question why humans ever decided to live anywhere that had winter. But I didn't move. Call it petty, call it holding a grudge, call it whatever you want. I wasn't about to make this easy for him. "I'm good talking right here," I said. "What's going on?" Frank's jaw tightened, and I could see him warring with himself, probably debating whether to turn around and leave or swallow his pride and say what he'd come here to say. Pride lost, apparently, because he took a deep breath and said, "We need a little help." Again, there it was. The real reason for the visit, delivered with all the enthusiasm of a man admitting he had hemorrhoids. I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms. "What kind of help?" "Todd's car situation got worse. The fines racked up, insurance lapsed, and now there's this whole thing with the DMV and the bank, and it's all still under my name because I co-signed the loan." He was talking faster now, The words tumbling out like if he said them quick enough, they wouldn't count. They're threatening to come after my credit again. Maybe put a lien on the house even though you just cleared the mortgage, and I just need a little help to square it all away. A little help. That phrase again. The family motto, apparently. I wondered if they had it stitched on throw pillows at Carol's house. How much is a little help? About 8 grand. Maybe 9, depending on the penalty fees. I actually laughed. Couldn't help it. The absurdity of this man standing